Hi, this is Gordon Gianninoto again, and I was just talking a little bit about the mineral kingdom. But, as an eternal soul, you're never going to die. So you're reborn and you live in a body on a planet, and then you die. And then you're reborn again. So all your bodies, all the physical thing that you're in, all of those have beginnings and endings, but what doesn't have a beginning and ending is your eternal soul. So if you could look at all of your lifetimes, they would look like grains of sand on an endless beach. And so therefore there's a connection. And each time you're reborn, you try and take a step that for you, spiritually, advances you to another level. Now eventually, it isn't just another level like if you're a piece of rock, that you become a greater rock. It could be that your next step is you've advanced so far and you've begun to feel that maybe you will be born as a plant. So that's the progression. So everything starts somewhere. The universe is very, very old, and there's an unbelievable amount of souls everywhere. Now, of course, your body is made of pieces of substance like iron and all kinds of other things, water. And each one of those molecules has a consciousness for itself. But all of you together is being operated by a greater soul that's had much more experience, and that's you. So there's all kinds of planets and all kinds of worlds, and these kingdoms of nature, the mineral, the plant, and the animal, and the human, all occur in lots of other places. So the Earth is not the only place that has this. In fact, the whole universe is that way, and it can reach a point where you're so advanced and capable and experienced that you might actually become the soul for a planet. So people talk about Mother Earth, and some people really believe that there is a soul of Mother Earth, and Mother Earth talks to you. And I say to you this: of course, that's exactly what it is. But there are souls that are actually stars. There are souls that are galaxies. So everything combines, and it's like if you were a planet, you're responsible for all the other souls on your planet that are trying to grow. So you want to nurture them. You want to help them. So this kind of a thing is not something that is just happening at one level. So as plants, as minerals become more advanced, some of them begin to feel. So we're talking about physical existence. They just realize they're there, and that's it. But then some of them realize there's other things there, and they become capable, maybe not at the beginning, but all at once, but at some level they can be reborn into a substance where they can express themselves better. So what you have is that there's growth, there's evolution, there's expansion. So finally, after a mineral becomes aware that there's other minerals and there's a world out there with all this stuff going on, it can start to react to that world. Like I said, crystals might store up and transmit energy. They can record things. People can pick up crystals and go, oh my God, this crystal goes all the way back to the time of Atlantis, and I can see everything that happened on Earth through this crystal just by tuning into it. And in the same way, it's sending energy out, so it's interacting. So the next step is to go to the plant kingdom. Well, the plant kingdom is conscious that it's physically there, but it also has feelings. And it also can in its environment, interact with other things better than it could as a mineral. So you've probably heard that you can talk to your plants, you can play them classical music, you can do all kinds of things to stimulate plants. And the biggest thing of all is to appreciate them, to say, thank you to that palm tree in the corner. You're doing a great job. That you really brighten up the house. You help with the clean the air. I'm just so thankful. And the thing is the plant knows you're talking to it. And it may not be able to talk back, but it's appreciating that it's appreciated. And that's what you have to do. You have to look around at the blades of grass, the dandelions, the oak trees, the cactus, the plankton in the water, the algae, all of this stuff, all the plant life, kelp, seaweed, any of this stuff that's not an animal and not just a mineral, this is all alive. Now you know it's alive because if you have taken plants, you have to feed them and water them. And don't you think they know that you're doing that? Don't you think they know when things are good and when things are bad? Haven't you ever gone outside and looked at the trees or the weather, the grass or the fields of crops, or and go, wow, they look really unhappy. I mean, they look really unhappy. And you see, there was a time when there was a connection between mankind and the animals and the crops and the plants, where you could say, well, this plant, they need some water, and the earth itself would react positively and send in a cloud of rain and shower gently on the field and water all the plants. But that connection's sort of been broken over time, and one of the reasons why it's broken is because people just don't appreciate what the connection is, that you really have to tune into this stuff, and the plants can tell you a lot. Now, shaman and medicine men or women are able to take plants, and just by tasting a little bit of it, the plant will tell them what it's good for. And so that's the origin of the whole idea of herbal healing and conditions, is because all these things, these souls in these different kingdoms, like the plant kingdom, are trying to have a valuable role in life. And they have decided to be constructive and to see what they can do to make everything better. And that's what's going on. So it isn't just you're out there and there's some rocks and there's some plants. No, you're surrounded by actually parts of you, because where you came from is where they came from. So you've got to really look at it differently than you ever have. And when you go to cut something or use something, you've got to thank it. And that's why it's so important to thank a tree, or thank, if you're eating some grain, some cereal, or you're having rice for dinner, whatever you're doing, thank it. It knows that it's being appreciated, and it likes to do a better job. And so it knows if it's doing a better job, or if it's not doing a better job, maybe there's something you can do to help it. So there are lots of levels here where things are all trying to get ahead, just like you're trying to get ahead. And in a sense, you're trying to figure out what's important and work on that. Not all of you, of course, but probably if you're listening to this, you are that kind of a person. And so you have to really think about, well, which plants are more expressive? Well, the ones that interact with bees, for instance, they realize that they can't do it themselves, and so they've created an opportunity for another form of life to interact with them and benefit from them. And so this is all like a plan. It's all interlocked, and everything around you is all connected for a reason. It all came from the same place, and it's going back to the same place. And someday that soul that's in the dandelions, and there may be one soul for all the dandelions in your yard. For instance, each dandelion itself might not have its own soul, but the parts of the dandelion, like the minerals and the water that are in the dandelion, each of those parts may have their own souls. But the point is, it's a collection of life that's trying to work with you. So why would you try and work against it? That's the point, really, is that you should go out into nature and experience this, because you're not going to really realize it when you're sitting on your couch. You should get outside and try and tune into some of these things. Now, a lot of things only live like a year. They're called annuals, and they're born that year and then they die that year, and they create a fruit that's a gift for you, and you harvest it, and then it helps you survive through the winter, and then it starts growing again the next year from the seed. But there's other things like perennials. Now, perennials just go into like hibernation during the winter, but then they come back. So the thing is that some of these things have been around for a long time now. You might not have realized it, but when you look at a spruce tree only lives 75 to 100 years. But a white pine might live 400 to 800 years. An oak tree might live 800 years. Now, Each tree has its own soul. It's like usually a young soul, but can you imagine being an oak tree for 800 years? Of course, we don't see many 800-year-old oak trees because everyone goes out and cuts them down, and so that's the end of the oak trees. But can you imagine that some of these trees have really old souls? Well, if you're going to sit there as a tree, you can't just go for a walk down to the river. You can't go look at the ocean. Maybe you're in a nice spot and you're very strong because you've had a lot of strong windy breezes hitting you, and you've grown stronger roots and things. But you've seen people come and go. You've seen animals come and go. Now, don't you think that soul of that tree has learned an awful lot? Well, if I gave you 800 years to learn something, and even if I just put you in one spot and you couldn't really move beyond that, don't you think you'd learn something? So there's a lot of wisdom in some of these trees. That's why you've got that phrase, tree hugger. People can actually go out and they can put their arms around a tree. And of course, a tree that's 400 years old or 800 years old, you can't put your arms around it. Maybe it would take 3 or 4 or 5 arm lengths to get around the tree. But that tree has wisdom, and you can tune in on it. You can use that to tune in on where it lives and what it's gone through and what it knows. You can communicate with it. And the thing is you probably have never thought of that, but you can do that. So I'm trying to give you a new way to look at life and to express yourself. So now, the trees and the plants, you would think, well, they just exist. No, they've got feelings, and they can react to their environment, and they can pick up the feelings, and they can react to them, and they can also create feelings. They can nurture life. I mean, think of the life that's nurtured in a large tree that's 800 years old. It's just incredible. So the thing is that there's a lot of wisdom and knowledge that these plants have stored up. And as they grow in experience and knowledge and wisdom, they are able to start thinking. I know that seems like really strange, but think about it. Minerals, the most advanced of them, can feel. Well, guess what? The most advanced plants can think. And I'll just give you an idea, like, for instance, just to start you thinking. Look at the Venus flytrap. It can catch an animal and eat it. Now, what kind of a plant can do that? What's going on that a plant can outsmart an animal? That's because this is a continuous line of increase. This is a continuous line of development, of capability. And just because you're in the one kingdom or the other doesn't mean that you don't have your sight set on the next kingdom up and how you're going to live in that and how you're going to do that. So you do have plants. Most plants, well, all plants just live, but all plants feel in various degrees. But what I'm saying is the most advanced plants can think. So I hope you find that pretty interesting, because there are actually plants that can communicate with you. So you can ask a plant, whatever you want to ask it. I suggest you ask it plant things like, what are you good for? What is this going to do for my body? How is this going to help me? And another thing, have you ever noticed that in different areas of the country, you'll be sitting there and all of a sudden there's a new type of plant just seems to be everywhere? And maybe that's nature, Mother Earth, saying, I know you could really use this plant, and you may not recognize how important it is, but it's got something that would really help you right now. So you may be sitting there and there's St. John's wort all of a sudden comes up. Maybe that's because everyone in your neighborhood's depressed and they need to take it to heal themselves. So you should really study what's going on with these plants. Don't just let it happen to you. You could be sitting somewhere and there's never been a sassafras tree in your life, and all of a sudden there's a big storm and now everywhere you look sassafras trees are sprouting. This happens. So if you're not alert and you're not paying attention, you're missing an awful lot. So pay attention. So this is the end of this part 2, so thank you very much.